issues. Let's go to the chamber now, where Margaret Ritchie
for a
is on.
compassionate upfront lump sum payment to persons diagnosed with diffuse mesothelioma, or if the person has passed on to their dependents. It will ensure faster compensation for those with mesothelioma without the need to establish an occupational link or indeed any causal link. Crucially, the bill will help those people who currently would face great difficulty in securing civil compensation. For example, family members who were exposed to asbestos fibres from their partners or fathers' work clothes, or those who can establish no obvious cause or source of exposure. The bill will provide significant financial help to such people in the final months of their lives. The intention is that payments under the new scheme will be available from October this year, and persons with diffuse mesothelioma should receive a substantial payment within a matter of weeks of making a claim. Our aim over time is to increase the amount available by way of compensation, and any amount recouped from subsequent civil compensation will be ploughed back into the scheme to provide even greater help to future sufferers. During consideration stage, members sought clarification on a number of issues, and I was able and pleased to be able to provide that reassurance to the Assembly on those matters. And I would like to further reassure members that I will ensure that officials expedite payments as quickly as possible. And remember that the only test is the simple diagnosis provided by the claimant's general practitioner. I wish to thank the outgoing chairman, the vice chairman and the Committee for Social Development, and indeed members in general, for the very positive manner and support in progressing this important and compassionate bill, this compassionate piece of legislation, which I hope will provide some degree of comfort to people in their final days. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I beg to move.
Mr Brady.
Sinn Féin supports this bill, and indeed we did support accelerated passage in this bill, and I just want to make that point. In her eagerness to attack Sinn Féin, earlier in the day the Minister gave the impression that in the child maintenance bill we voted against the bill. In fact, we voted against accelerated passage for what we considered the best reasons, and we will continue to take each piece of legislation on its merits and consider it, unlike the Minister who seems to want to rubber stamp everything that comes into her sphere of influence.
Does the Minister wish to make any further comment?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. First of all, I thank Mr Brady for his contribution to the debate, albeit his very barbed comments, which I find totally unreasonable. But nonetheless, I would say that this is one of the most compassionate pieces of legislation that will impact on a small group of people who find themselves suffering from a terrible illness, an illness for which they owe no responsibility to themselves, but a situation for which they find themselves in. I'd be happy to give way.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I certainly want to put on record my deep gratitude to the Minister and the Department for bringing in this legislation. It has been long overdue, and as I said last week in the Assembly, the members of the Campaign for Justice for Asbestos look on this as a very special day indeed, and I'm very, very grateful for this legislation coming forward.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank Mr Neeson for his very helpful comments, because that is the interpretation that I receive from the wider community, the anxiety that this bill is enacted as quickly as possible in order to bring comfort to those who in many ways are in their final days of life. And that is a very sad thing to be able to have to talk about. I fully recognise, Mr Deputy Speaker, that no amount of money can adequately compensate for a person's life. But I hope that the fact that lump sum payments will be available within weeks of making a claim will be of some comfort to those suffering from this terrible illness and to their dependents. Again, I would say I am grateful to the Social Development Committee and to members for their positive contribution to the progress of the bill and for the level of consensus that the bill has enjoyed across this Assembly, in spite of some of the barbed comments that have just been made. But I would really say to Sinn Féin that if you did take your seats at Westminster and abandoned your mischief-making and abandoned your policy of abstentionism, then you would have an opportunity to discuss a bill at Westminster in relation to parity legislation line by line, either on the floor of the House or in the committee stage. So that's where you have the real influence over parity legislation. In conclusion, Mr Deputy Speaker, I believe that this is a progressive... No, I won't be. I've only a few minutes. And I want to deal with this compassionate piece of legislation, which I note that you have supported. I believe that this is a progressive, compassionate bill.
Point of order.
The Minister's given the impression in her speech there, after what Mickey Brady said, that Sinn Féin done nothing other than support this bill as it went through the committee. And she needs to clarify that position.
Carry on, Minister.
Deputy Speaker, I don't think that was a point of order. It was just a situation of self-justification for a position that they took in respect of child maintenance, trying to say that they had points in respect of inequality impact assessment when they didn't make comments when they should have been. Mr Deputy Speaker, I believe that the mesothelioma bill is a progressive piece of legislation. It is a compassionate piece of legislation which will bring real help to people at a time when most help and when that help is required. I am pleased, Mr Deputy Speaker, to commend this bill to the Assembly, and I think all members of this House look forward to helping people who are in a great level of distress and who are suffering from this terrible illness at this time. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the mesothelioma etc. Bill NIA 16/07 do now pass. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary of any no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it.